2021 marks the beginning of the United Nations Decade of Healthy Aging and a new era full of challenges and opportunities ahead. We pledge our support of this UN initiative and ask ourselves, what can we do to create age-friendly and age-ready communities? How will technologies shape this new era? And what will 2030 look like? In this closing session, Joseph Coughlin, founder and director of the MIT Age Lab, shares his vision for the future.
Thank you so much for having me. I am delighted to be here to speak about a future that all of us hope to share, living longer and living better. But let me begin with a story. Let me talk to you about Sarah Noss. She's one of the people that helped inspire me to start the Age Lab here at MIT. Sarah Noss in 1999 celebrated her 119th birthday. Imagine that, 119 years. And at that birthday, she was asked by a journalist, if you can imagine, shall we say the courage or the chutzpah, to ask a woman on her 119th birthday, Ms. Noss, why do you enjoy living so long? She came back with an answer far more powerful, far more insightful than any researcher, doctor, policymaker, or pundit. She said, I enjoy my life because I have my health and I can do things. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the future of healthy aging is not necessarily the absence of chronic conditions, but rather the ability to be able to do those things that make us happy and to continue to do things. It is not one or the other. My team at the MIT Age Lab, we are based in the School of Engineering, but we draw across the institute because aging is a multidisciplinary sport. We don't want to just think about whether or not your blood pressure's been taken or your medications have been taken on time. Well-being is far more holistic. Healthy aging is more than simply the absence of chronic conditions or even how well they're managed. It is about doing those things. So my team is one half every flavor of psychology and social science you can imagine, 1/3 engineering and data science, and another third of social work, anthropology, political science, and the like. You see, we need to rethink the institutions, the infrastructure, and yes, the technologies of how well we live life today and eventually tomorrow. Our focus is on the built environment and markets and policy. We're envisioning the home no longer simply as a place to live, but as a platform of services that provide convenience, connectivity, and ultimately care. We're not just thinking about the age-friendly community. No, we want to think about the age-ready community where there's transportation, accessibility, and the intensity and density of activities that truly excite and delight and are accessible to all of any age or any condition. We're also rethinking this notion of retirement. What is it? How do we plan for it? How do we save for it? What are the technologies and the behaviors that we need to live longer and better? And then finally, caregiving. At some point, all of us will either be giving care to a loved one or receiving care. We are developing the largest panel study in the world of caregiving to understand those micro moments of what we will need, what we will expect, and how technology will help us live longer and better and provide care, supporting not just the well-being of those we care for, but of the caregiver too. But let me tell another little story to get into the technologies and that vision, if you will, of where we must aim with technology to promote healthy aging in the coming decade. Here's a story. You know, the most powerful technology in the world is not the internet, the genome, space travel, or any of that. No, actually not. The most powerful technology in the world is the oldest. It's the story. You see, the story explains why we do certain things and why we don't do others. What's possible, what's impossible, what's acceptable, what's affordable. The story is how we make sense of the world. But here's the thing I want you to think about. Old age, as I write in my book, The Longevity Economy, is a story that's made up. Yes, you heard it here first. Old age is made up. Well, at least the way we think about old age worldwide. You see, in the 1800s, medical science, particularly in the UK and parts of Europe, and then expanded around the world, said that basically old age was about how much energy you had, how much vital force you had. You see, the argument was that you were born with a certain amount of vital energy or vital force. And if you drained it down by working or, frankly, doing anything fun, you would become tired. But here's the thing about stories. They not only make sense of our world, they help us make new language. You'd become so tired you would not be able to work. Therefore, you would have to, you heard me, retire. You see, stories help us make sense of the world, but also, shall we say, pin us into a corner of how we look at the world. And by the way, in the 1800s, early 1900s, if you did not work and did not have family to care for you, you were poor. And by the way, you would end up going to alms homes, poor homes, which, by the way, then turned into nursing homes, which then turned into funeral homes. You see, the story of old age, as we still adhere to it, sadly, today, tells a story of making the single greatest achievement of humankind, I believe, older age, or living longer, 30 to 40 years longer for many of us in the world than in 1900, not into a great achievement or an opportunity to be won, but rather a problem to be solved. Ladies and gentlemen, technology for healthy aging tomorrow is about understanding the opportunity not just to live longer, but indeed to live better. This story of old age has made us only invest in things like senior housing or services that say, help, I've fallen, I can't get up. Imagine this. Those services, personal emergency response systems, or social alarms, absolutely necessary, absolutely helpful for many. But only 35% of people over age 75 in an Age Lab survey identified themselves as old. But 100% of people who wear something on their jacket or their wrist or a pendant that say, I'm about to fall down, know that they're old. You see, the future of technology will be technology by stealth. How do we age well without having to admit what we've lost, but rather the independence that we've gained? It must be more than reminding us to simply take our medications, to check our blood pressure, and have countless technology devices in our lives, in our homes, in our cars, wherever they may be, that are big, that are beige, that are boring. No, design in the future of technology will matter as much as the functionality. We know that during COVID, that many of us had the opportunity not just to buy toilet paper during the pandemic, but to buy technology by the pallet load. We saw smart speakers, smart doorknobs, smart scales, whatever it might be. We realized that technology and access to that technology was critical to providing high-tech care and to maintain connectivity. But the future of technology is going to be undergoing four waves of how technology is advancing over the next decade. The first wave, and none of these have totally receded, was about making technology, shall we say, accessible in terms of interface. The buttons are big enough, you can read the font, that frankly, it was all about what was lost by the user, not how good the technology could be. We certainly are seeing a new future where aging is smart. But unfortunately, smart also meant that it was always a medical problem. It was always about the frailty rather than the well-being or preserving your well-being. We've seen smart toilets that, shall we say, can download from the user your body weight, your medication, then upload that to a nutrition site, whatever it might be. Not incorrect, but woefully incomplete as to what true health and well-being is about. We're now in an era where we're looking at technology as an economic opportunity. Countless companies and even governments are now thinking about the silver economy or the silver wave, or as I dub it, the longevity economy, as an opportunity. Again, not incorrect, but very incomplete. We now need to think of the future of technology about inclusion and equity, affordability, accessibility, even knowing that it's out there. In the coming decade, we will see a rise of integrators and information technology that will help people understand what technology is available, how they can use it, and how they can integrate it into their home. How will this be done? We now need not just to think about new sensors or molecules or new technologies that are in countless laboratories waiting to be in countless living rooms. No, we now need to think about innovative partnerships, policies and promotion and markets, if you will, to make these technologies available to as many people as all. And this is too big for government. It is too big for business alone. We need creative and unprecedented partnerships between NGOs, government, business, universities, and by the way, at multiple levels, at national levels, global levels, and indeed community levels. You see, aging is discussed at the national and international level, but we age locally. So let me bring this around to where technology is going. It is not just simply about my medication and my health. It is about function. It's about our friends. It's about fun. It's about fashion. All well-being, not simply health as we know it. We have the certain future of having robots in our lives, in our homes, wherever they may be, that will remind us of behaviors to help manage, monitor, and motivate everything from medication, nutrition, social connection. We're seeing our kitchens and bathrooms change where things are so connected that outside service providers will start to, shall we say, lend a hand where family may not be able to. My friends at the MIT Age Lab and my colleagues envision the home as a service platform that begins with simple, the house that many of us grew up with, that we were lucky to have electricity, all the way to a home, if you will, that will be serving as a companion and be able to sense and proactively engage you whether there's a problem or not. We know that technology is also going to have to create new linkages to friends and fun. We learned during the pandemic and certainly before that social isolation suffered by older adults is the physical equivalent of smoking 11 to 15 cigarettes per day. It's not just about loneliness, it's about depression, cardiovascular disease, and the like. We're seeing digital technologies, whether it's social media or not, starting to connect older people. Certainly the digital divide amongst the ages is not closed yet, but in the coming decade, we envision to be more close, where we're connected not just with family, but with friends and service providers. We're seeing gamification that we thought was only the province of the young become a way for young, older people, if you will, to maintain physical fitness and to have fun across borders, across countries and time zones. We're seeing virtual reality, augmented reality, or as we're calling it these days, the metaverse, not be simply a way of envisioning the future, but also envisioning fun, travel. If you're too frail to be able to travel someplace, maybe virtual will be an alternative that will bring a smile, start a conversation, and make you feel connected. And yes, in the coming decades, social robots will become greater than we've ever seen before. Not just to take your medication, to remind you to take all those things that you need to be healthy about, but to tell a joke, share a recipe, be more engaging, to be the pipeline, if you will, to friends and family that may not be with you. And by the way, high tech will never, I believe, to be a substitute for high touch. But in lieu of family, in lieu of friends, or if you're living in conditions where high touch is not possible, high tech will be that substitute. And by the way, the future of technology will not just be about monitoring your well-being and monitoring and motivating and managing how you live wherever you may be. It'll also be about looking good. Remember, living longer and living better. We buy products and services not simply because of what they do for us, but what they say about us. So having technologies that say, I may be older, but I'm cool. I may be older, but I'm fashionable. So whether it's hearables or wearables or eventually implantables, these new technologies will help us age by stealth. So suddenly the devices that we use will no longer be about what you've lost, but about the lifestyle you seek to gain. Let me end on the following note. Vannevar Bush, the then Dean of Engineering and Science Advisor to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, said that science and technology was an endless frontier. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to think over the next decade, in celebration of the UN Decade in Healthy Aging, to be an endless frontier, as Sarah Noss said, not simply to think about the biological, the physiological age, but to understand how it is an endless frontier to create new ways, new partnerships, new experiences to help us live longer and better and happier lives. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a delight, and have a great new year ahead.